He's the Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, Marvel gonna sue somebody. Talking Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. This is a comedy movie focusing on Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith's comedy characters, Jay and Silent Bob, in their latest misadventures as they travel to Hollywood in search of this movie production, this reboot of their Bluntman and Chronic personas. They want to kind of destroy it because they don't want this kind of reboot about their lives. On the way, they discover personal connections, truths about themselves, and various misadventures on the way, along with a whole host of celebrity cameos. So, in the words of Silent Bob, let's talk about what works, first of all, with this movie. Okay, there are a couple of things that I can say positive about this movie. Number one, it is fun looking at all these celebrity cameos. Kevin Smith's obviously a pretty popular guy in the kind of the Hollywood sphere, and as such, this movie is absolutely populated with celebrity cameos. I do feel like it's a little bit of just kind of doing him a favour, and like, but it does seem a little bit of a checkbox exercise to a certain degree. But nonetheless, it is fun. Pretty much every character in the movie has some type of fun little cameo somewhere along the way there, and it's a whole host of them. It's probably more than any other Kevin Smith movie. There's also lots of callbacks to his previous movies. So if you're a big fan of the Kevin Smith movies, to be honest with you, for me speaking personally, I enjoy Clerks 2 to a certain degree, and Mallrats, but I've got to say the rest of his filmography is a little spotty, and recently Kevin Smith has certainly had a hell of a lot more misses than hits. I think he came out of the gates very well, but recently he has really not been doing himself any favours, I feel, by releasing some pretty poor movies. But this does have sort of cameos and references to a lot of the movies, the good and the bad. Some of the scenes, there are some amusing scenes within this film, some type of commentary on pop culture, Hollywood, reboots, remakes, all of that kind of thing, comic book films. I mean, Kevin Smith does have his finger on the pulse of the kind of the comic book movie genre. I have watched a few Kevin Smith reviews that he's done, and he never really seems to be that critical of anything, which makes me think he's not particularly critical of his own work. And it's plain to see that he'll just has lots of ideas, but maybe kind of needs someone to pull back on him a little bit and kind of like focus a producer who isn't his friend, who will actually kind of say, Kevin, this is not a great idea, maybe we shouldn't do this, because I feel he surrounds himself with his friends, and I feel that although that might be fun to work with, it's not particularly productive. So I've got to be honest with you. I thought this was a pretty bad film. This movie tries to have an emotional pathos, and it's so poorly executed. I don't want to give any spoilers here, but it really doesn't work. And although they make a joke about nepotism, but nonetheless, it's it's meant to be an in-joke because there's a certain star in this movie who is related to Kevin Smith, but it's unfortunately this actor isn't a particularly good actor. Let's just put it like that. The film does not work at an emotional level. This tries to have some emotional messages within this about fatherhood, things like this, relationships we have with other people, but it's so ham-fisted. And these emotional moments simply do not work. I have to say, I mean, this may be well a personal thing here. The characters of Jay and Silent Bob, they were amusing for the small parts that they had in the things like Clerks, and they had some quite funny lines. but you don't really want to root for them, especially Jay, who is they're trying to make him here seem more of a likeable character. And I know Kevin Smith is like, it's a bit like, reminds me of Carl Pilkington and Ricky Gervais. He has really tried to hold this guy's hand through his personal problems and give him work. And I applaud Kevin Smith's, you know, his commitment to his friend, but in a creative standpoint, it just, to me, this feels very old now. It's very kind of past its due date. Some people may really like the kind of the Jay and Silent Bob dynamic. And like I said, I liked it in small doses to a degree, but I think it's stale now. It doesn't work into kind of like modern sort of 2020s kind of cinema. And like I was kind of alluded to, they have all these kind of celebrity cameos, but to me, the movie just feels like it's just going for the next celebrity cameo, and it's just kind of it doesn't really feel like there's any purpose to it, and it becomes a little bit meaningless after a while. And it just seems an excuse to have all these kind of different people in here. I will say, there's one quite touching cameo that's actually in the credits. That's actually not technically anything to do with the movie, but it was very touching, and I don't want to kind of say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but it was something that was captured on film with someone who's no longer with us, that I know Kevin Smith had a very kind of personal relationship, and it's a really sweet couple of minutes of footage that, technically speaking, wasn't made for the film, but it's good to have it included in that. That was a good scene. Yeah, but this is just, this is just a bad movie. The plot is just kind of like ridiculous. It thinks it's smarter than it is. The scenes that are going to be emotional don't work. It's really not as funny as the kind of like, as a comedy. And certainly there's far better and far funnier Kevin Smith movies. I think some of the pop culture references and jokes miss. I feel the movie gets progressively worse as it goes on. There are a couple of amusing scenes, certainly with Jason Lee's character, when they're actually discussing reboots versus remakes and things like that. That kind of works, but as the film progresses and they go more and more into their kind of their adventures, I feel it works less and less and less as the film kind of progresses with you. And there just seems there's some really forced scenes in here. There's a group of KKK members that seem to turn out of nowhere, just to have a kind of a little bit of a dramatic moment and a hero moment. Yeah, it's just over. It's a real kind of like mess of a movie, and I think Kevin Smith, if he's going to continue, in my opinion, he needs to kind of have a little bit better creative team around him and producers that is going to keep him in check a little bit more. Like, I feel he's really batting quite poorly these days. This movie was a little bit of a tough watch. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. It was pretty bad. It's one of the worst Kevin Smith films. I haven't seen Tusk, admittedly, but, you know, I don't want to. But this film, from the ones I have seen, which is pretty much every other Kevin Smith movie outside of that and Yoga Houses, but, yeah, it's pretty bad. 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.